These mountain ranges and deep valleys are in one of the most disputed places on Earth. Kashmir sits between two nuclear powers, Pakistan and India. It's home to at least 14 million people. Both claim territory in the region and administer different parts of it. Violence between India and Pakistan has flared here since the mid-20th century when Britain drew a border between the two countries. India and Pakistan process. Since then, after two wars, more news from troubled Kashmir. Bursts of fighting and thousands of deaths. There has never been an agreed border in Kashmir. The issue has fueled an arms race. There is now an impacted international relations. There is also the question of so how did Kashmir become such a volatile and globally significant issue? To understand all this, we need to go back to when the borders between India and Pakistan were first drawn. An era has ended, a new epoch began. Exhausted by two world wars, Britain could no longer afford to govern the colony where a decades-long struggle for independence had reached its peak. A subcontinent becomes true self-governing dominion. Faced with growing religious tensions, Britain partitioned it, creating Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. But the situation soon deteriorated. Rejoicing turned quickly into horror and mourning. The partition process was rushed. Borders were drawn by a British lawyer, Sir Cyril Radcliffe, who had never been to India before, using outdated maps and old census information. They flee from savagery and butchery that has never been exceeded even. The hasty decision by the British to draw the border created the cuttings and attacks and massacres. Polarized by religion, neighbor turned on neighbor, and brutal atrocities were committed. An estimated 1 million died and 15 million were displaced as many Muslims fled to Pakistan and Hindus and Sikhs headed in the opposite direction. Against this backdrop of division and trauma came the question of Kashmir. Kashmir as the state had not been under direct British rule, its Maharaja, Hari Singh, was given the option of joining newly formed India or Pakistan, but wanted to remain independent. Fearing he would side with India, tribal militias from Pakistan attacked Kashmir. Already, the rebel forces have left a trail of looted and burning villages on their way. He asked India for help, and the Indian government would only come and provide support succession towards India. Hari Singh agreed. This sparked the first war between India and Pakistan in October 1947. The conflict went to the heart of how the newly formed countries saw themselves. So Kashmir stands in for deep questions. Pakistan has been set up as a homeland for Muslims in 1947. Indian nationalist leaders, on the other hand, saw the Indian nation as having no particularly dominant religion or region or even language in the mid-20th century, and created a narrative of belonging that was based on war with an agreement to make a temporary border in Kashmir along a ceasefire line, which was later called the Line of Control. This created two semi-autonomous states. The line shifted back and forth through conflicts over the decades, becoming heavily fortified, and is still in place today. The United Nations also recommended the region be demilitarized and for the Kashmiri people to vote on their own future. That, of course, never materialized. Soon after, another country laid claim to part of Kashmir: China. In 1954, China started construction all the way into Xinjiang. The road passed through this icy mountain plateau in Kashmir called Aksai Chin. That highway was completed in a war between India and China. The fighting resulted in China retaining Aksai Chin and also laid the foundations for Pakistan to grow closer to China, with India a concern for both. Pakistan then handed over control of the Shaksgam Valley border area to China a year later, solidifying their alliance. India still claims both areas. Then there's a deep alliance both to do with strategic competition over Kashmir and with India, as well as over time, sort of Cold War politics began to play out in the region too, drawing in other external powers. Though officially internationally neutral, India aligned with the Soviet Union, turning to the USSR for aid, while the US gave Pakistan's military billions of dollars, allowing its army to modernize. The United States wanted a foothold ally, Pakistan, for help training and supporting anti-communist fighters. The war led to further instability across the region. So in the night, in part because the Soviet Union's disintegration in 1989 meant that this wave of insurgency was focused on pushing India out of Kashmir, though Pakistan's claim in the region was also contested. India alleged the Pakistani state supported these insurgent groups. Pakistan has always denied these claims, though recognized some of the groups have political bases in Pakistan. Meanwhile, both countries have been ramping up their atomic programs. India became a threat. By 1998, both had officially become nuclear states, global war on terror, and used Pakistan as a base from which to fight the Taliban. The Pakistani government was very forthcoming and were appreciative. The US also put pressure on the South Asian state to tackle terrorism. Pakistan officially banned some militant troops operating from its land in 2002. Meanwhile, China's growing dominance in the region was becoming a concern to the US. US trade with India soared dramatically, and the US agreed to help India with its nuclear energy program. China and Pakistan both opposed this deal and grew even closer, strengthening their own. Part of this huge network of investments in roads and railways passes through Pakistan-administered Kashmir, making the stability of the region not just a strategic but also a financial concern for China. Despite so much being at stake for the US and China, attempts at diplomatic resolutions in Kashmir have not been successful. There's been a long-standing disagreement on how to even approach diplomacy, with India opposing the involvement of other countries. 2 weeks later, Modi made his biggest move to date on Kashmir by removing Article 370 from India's constitution. This stripped Indian-administered Kashmir, which is majority Muslim, of any remaining autonomy and effectively incorporated it into India itself. Modi also announced he would resettle displaced Kashmiri Hindus in the valley. The Modi government of Pakistan condemned this move. And China also weighed in, saying the decision damaged its territorial claims in Kashmir. India doubled down and accompanied the move with a significant military presence in the region. This was a really major move in Kashmir, detainments of political opposition figures, blackouts. Following this huge change in the way Indian-administered Kashmir was governed, Pakistan maintained this unilateral move from India broke international. Following a deadly militant attack on tourists, India blamed the attack on Pakistan and responded with airstrikes in what it claimed was a bid to dismantle insurgent strongholds in Pakistan-controlled Kashmir and Pakistan itself. This was the first time that Chinese high-tech jets and missiles had been used in a combat situation. And experts say if claims about the success of this weaponry are validated, it will be a big boost to the Chinese arms industry. India leans on Western countries, including the US and France, to bulk its arsenal. Further escalation was halted by a ceasefire, but the world remains alert to the danger of what could happen between these two heavily armed nuclear powers. It's a deeply felt and very real conflict. But ultimately, it's about... But how do the people who live in Kashmir see themselves? The referendum recommended by the United Nations in 1949 for Kashmiris to vote on their own future still hasn't happened. What does it mean to belong to a state, and on what basis? What? Kashmir's questions. What does it mean to belong? Who are Kashmiris? And where do they belong?